Sorry, hold on.
Just trying to confirm on my phone.
What's that?
I'm just trying to confirm.
Okay,
I'll make care of it. We'll get so giddy that we won't know.
we're doing,
It does take a second to process.
just getting technology set up. It says now streaming live on YouTube. Good?
Good, Eric? Are we good? Yep.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Karen Krish. I'm the principal at Marion Walker Elementary School, and I'm also the pandemic coordinator for the district. I have with me Tammy Berniford, who's our interim superintendent currently. Joining us also via Zoom is Summer Garman, who's the principal at the middle school and also for the Bella program, and Mr. Fedison, who is the principal at the high school. So we're going to get started because we have lots to talk about. I want to just start by saying thank you to everyone who's tuning in, and thank you for your questions. We got a lot of responses, and so we're eager to answer those questions and make sure that you have the information you need to make some decisions about your students for this fall. I'd also just like to say thank you to those people who have been sharing kind words and encouraging us to. This has been very tough, and so we want to just acknowledge that we appreciate your kind words of encouragement. So we're going to get started. I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to do a quick overview of the choices, and then we will go from there. All right, let me just move this out of my way a little. All right, so we have 3 learning options. Oops, sorry. I didn't change my, move through the PowerPoint, not happening. Oh, here we go. All right, so in the green phase, the pandemic plan that is required by the state has us create a plan for green phase and for yellow phase. Even though the green phase definitions and the yellow phase definitions across the state have changed slightly since back in March. So our first day of school is August 25th. And so we've used guidance from the Pennsylvania Department of Education, Department of Health, administrators. We have a team at school of more than 50 people who are on our task force that involves some local medical folks, as well as some other experts that we're relying on to make sure we have the most recent information, most science-based information, and all that kind of good stuff. So we have 3 options in the green phase, and one is full-time in-person education at your child's assigned school. The second option is cyber education through our Bellefonte e-learning academy. And our third option, which we recently added, is a hybrid option. And that's where some students will learn remotely on certain days while others will be physically in school. And we're going to get into the details of each of those too. The reason that we added the hybrid option is that we had some feedback from parents. We also had some feedback and some new guidance that came out on July 16th from the state. And we felt the need to try to help parents out who were really having some anxiety about sending kids to school full time and were not as interested in Bella. We also are looking to try to reduce our numbers at schools so that we can have smaller cohorts of students in each class. One of the things I just want to remind people of is that we are not ever going to completely mitigate the risk of COVID-19. Our task is to minimize it, mitigate it as best that we can, but we will never ever eliminate it completely from the setting. So with that in mind, we've got lots of plans to try and mitigate, and so we want to share those with you. So if your student is coming full-time in person, they will physically attend school on the scheduled calendar days that were put out by the board. So all staff and students will return to the school building and be in class. And there was a question in elementary level of will they have the teacher that was assigned to them in the fall? Yes, they will. If we get a lot of enrollees in Bella or in the hybrid option, and if class is overloaded, one's really small, we may call some parents to ask if they would have their student move to a different teacher. But we're not doing that yet. We're waiting until we see what the numbers look like before we start moving anybody. And you would get a phone call about that. So under the current guidance from PDE, our staff, students, they are required to wear face coverings throughout the day, with the exceptions of eating and drinking. And teachers will schedule mask breaks throughout the day. So this is a governor's order. It does apply to public schools, and so we will be enforcing the mask mandate. If you read the governor's orders, the acceptable face coverings are a mask, can be a bandana, can be a face shield. And so we're asking that parents supply those for their children. We will have some on hand for those who aren't able to supply them, but that if you that you supply those for your children. We will have lanyards at the elementary school that are made for masks so that students are not putting their masks down on desks when they're having mask breaks or when they're eating their lunch. And so we just ordered those today, as a matter of fact. If you do not want your child to wear a mask at school, or you don't think your child is able to, you must have a medical excuse for them not to wear a mask at school or a face covering. This is mandated. This is part of the PDE guidelines and guidance that came out on July 16th. We will be enforcing that. If you disagree with that mandate, then you should consider our Bella program because we will be enforcing that. Physical distancing will be practiced of 3 to 6 feet apart when possible. The PDE guidelines ask for 6 feet when feasible. We've also, and the state as well, has relied on some guidance from the American Academy of Pediatrics. We have also talked with some local pediatricians about this. And we are aiming for 6 feet in classrooms and other locations around the building, but in some cases it's not practical or possible to get 6 feet. We will have a minimum of 3 feet when students are in class or lunch or wherever they're going to be. So that's why in our plan it states 3 to 6 feet. Even though we'll try for 6, we may not be able to make that all the time.
They'll be wearing masks.
And they'll be wearing masks, so that helps mitigate that risk when they're less than 6 feet. So plans are in the works to reduce hallway traffic as well as the number of people in the cafeteria at one time. So we will have, each building's a little different. So, you know, it will depend on the setup of the buildings. We will be having signage and, you know, floor markings and those kind of things that show the pathways that for traffic. In some cases, there'll be one-way routes. In other cases where it's not possible to have one-way routes, there will be signage or there will be staggered time for people in the hallways, those kind of things. Principals in each building are working on a specific plan for their building to accommodate that, to mitigate that. In the mornings before school, we are still working on a plan. Our plan is not to have students be in the cafeterias, in the elementary schools, or in the lobbies of schools. We are still working on a plan to help figure out where students are going to be located. The plan asks that the state's recommendations suggest that we send students directly to class. So we're working on some scheduling items and some coverage issues that will help us plan that. And one of the things we will be asking parents to do is if they're dropping their children off, that they drop them off as close to school start time as possible so that we don't have a large number of students that we have to place before school starts. So parents will be expected to take their child's temperature daily prior to boarding buses or dropping them off at school. And parents are asked not to send their children to school if he or she is ill. And staff will be required to do the same. I'm going to share and have posted on our website after this meeting. We have a document that was drawn up by our school nurses that is called the Sick Day Plan. And it has some guidelines for parents about temperature. It also has some guidelines about if certain symptoms their children are exhibiting certain symptoms, that they keep them home. And so it's pretty well laid out on whether you should keep your kids home or not. And we ask you that if you have any doubt, then you keep them home and send in an excuse. Just like you would on regular absent days, if your child has signs or symptoms or fever, even if it's not COVID, if it's something, you know, a regular cold or those kind of things, that you send a note in just like you did before about why they're absent from school. There's been some questions about, you know, why are you not taking temperatures at school? And a couple of reasons. And one is those machines are very hard to locate and expensive, and they're on back order. That's one reason. We also consulted with medical experts who said it's not the only symptom and it's not always reliable. And so the expense may not be worth to buy to have it at each entrance in each school. We also do not have the manpower to man a temperature check without having kids congregating at our doorways in the morning. So lots of different factors like that when we think about these things, are the kinds of things that we think about and talk about before we make a decision. So we really are asking parents to please work with us and please be with us as you have been, to help us with this temperature check in the morning, and that you take that seriously and you get a routine in your household that does temperature checks daily. Kids who are at higher risk may be also checked by the school nurse, but that will be a limited number of students. Any students or quarantine will be able to continue learning through Google Classroom, as the teachers will be using this application. Now, this will be provided for a smoother learning transition should the district have to provide instruction to quarantine students or switch to other phases. So how this is going to work in Google Classroom is we started using Google Classroom when we got Chromebooks out in the spring. Google Classroom and how we are teaching in the fall is very, very different from the spring. We are not doing choice boards. We are doing our full curriculum at our pacing guides that we have for each of our classes and coursework, and we will be moving through those curriculums on pace throughout the school year. So if your child is quarantined or absent or chooses the hybrid model, on the days they are not in school, they will get their learning through Google Classroom. Teachers are currently in training right now and have been for a few weeks about how to do online learning and Google Classroom and how to coordinate that with live person learning. So if your student is in school for live learning, it will feel much like regular school. They may at times be on Google Classroom during the school day at school, which is normal. We've done that in the past. All students are taught how to use Google Classroom, and we've done different kinds of activities and assignments and such at all levels in the district. So we will spend some time early in the school year making sure kids are comfortable in that platform, so that teachers will be doing lesson plans and agendas and activities in Google Classroom assignments that are on pace every day with what's happening in class. So if your child is absent from class that day, they will get on Google Classroom and they'll be doing very similar assignments and skills to what's being done in the classroom. So it's very important that, and teachers may or may not be live on those during those times. It will vary from building to building, classroom to classroom, grade level to grade level. High school teachers may find that a live stream is more appropriate for their classroom, where another teacher might find that uploading a video or a PowerPoint with voiceover or some other method of learning may be more appropriate. And so teachers will have on the Google Classroom daily the activities that mirror what's happening in live school. And so your child is expected to do what's happening in the classroom.
They'll be posted weekly too.
Yes, they will be posted weekly as well. The district curriculum will be followed and on pace, and I said that before. So Bella, and I'm gonna turn this over to Mrs. Garman to talk a little bit about the Bella program.
All right, hello everybody. I know there are lots of questions about Bella and what it is and how is it different from Google Classroom? How is it different from what we did in the spring with the activity menus and choice boards? How is it different? What is it? And what are my students' responsibilities? And what are my responsibilities as a parent? So just to kind of break down a little bit of an overview of some of the things that Mrs. Krish put up here. There are mainly two people that oversee Bella. As Mrs. Krish said, I am the Bella principal. I'm also the principal of the Bellefonte area middle school. But we also have a Bella coordinator, and that is Rebecca Leitzel. And I know many of you have spoken with her over the last couple of weeks. You've emailed her. We are very happy to answer your questions because we get it. This isn't easy. This is not easy to figure out what's right for your student. And before I go any further, I just want to say, whatever you choose, that's right for you. There is no judgment that anybody can place place on anyone on choosing what is right for your student. So through this presentation this evening, we hope to give you information that will allow you to choose a choice for education for the fall that you are comfortable with. So having said that, there's a lot of information out there for Bella that you can find. If you go to our district website, we have a Bella page that has a lot of information listed on that page for you. Also on our school news website, in addition to our website, you can find additional information about cyber education in general. Our PR gal, Britt Malazzo, has done a wonderful job providing a lot of research out there about what cyber education is, what it is not, and then how Bella is different than some of those other programs. And so the number one way that Bella is different from other programs is your student is still and always will be a Bellefonte area school district student. We love our kids and we want to keep them with us in any way possible. And so for some students, online learning is absolutely the best way for them to go. Bella has been in existence for about 10 years now. And through that time, we have seen an average of about 50 students each year join Bella. Now, most of those students in the past have been secondary age students with a few elementary students, grades 3, 4, and 5 here and there. And there are a lot of reasons why in the past somebody might have chosen Bella. What is great about Bella is that students are able to work at their own pace. And again, for some students, that is absolutely the way they need to learn. They just need to focus on their coursework and not worry about anything else. Now, certainly with this new pandemic, everything has changed for all of us in so many ways. And so we're happy to be able to expand our Bella offerings. So if you're looking for some more information in reviewing the comments and questions that people had tonight, I definitely want to direct you to, there's a Bella FAQ that we created a few weeks ago that is on our website. A lot of the questions that were asked can be answered in here. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time going over those, but instead I'm going to try to give you a general overview of what Bella is for your students and also for you as parents, because I think that is maybe a lot of anxiety and wonder and worry. What am I going to be responsible for doing as a parent? So basically, Bella is broken down into two different platforms. We have our elementary platform, which is going to be K-5, and we have a special school board meeting tomorrow night where our school board will be discussing the provider who we are choosing to go with for our K-5 programming. Because before, the programming that we used only went down to 3rd grade. So I know there was a question or two about what about K-2? We don't see much information. You're right. We don't have a ton of information out there for you yet because we have been spending the last several weeks doing some research and finding what is going to be the best program for our elementary students. So let me speak to the secondary age students first. We work with a company called Odysseyware, and they were recently bought by Edgenuity, but it's the same company, same type of platform. So for our secondary students, students will be basically assigned coursework for an entire semester. It will be up to your students to stay on pace with the courses that are assigned. That means your students are going to need to have some self-motivation, put themselves on a schedule, log into their classes, get the work done. Any work that is not completed by the end of the semester turns into zeros. So it's super important for our students to stay on pace and stay on track. As far as our secondary students go, the Odysseyware teachers, who are all Pennsylvania certified teachers, but employed by Odysseyware, they're not employed by Bellefonte. They are great with email. They'll set up virtual hours that if your students need to talk to them, they can do that. Again, talking about Rebecca Leitzel as our Bella coordinator, this lady is phenomenal. She has been running our Bella program for about 8 years now, and she is also the liaison between the students and our Odysseyware program because we want them to be successful. We know they can be successful. And if something's not working, Ms. Leitzel is there to help guide them through that and help support them and support the parents because we're not able to see you every day. We're not able to see our students every day. So we need your voice. We need your students' voice to let us know what is or is not working. But a lot of the secondary learning is self-paced. Students are going to have to take it upon themselves to set them up with a schedule and figure out what time of day works best for them. And so that's secondary level. For the elementary level, and I think a lot of parents, I know I have fielded this question. I know Rebecca has fielded this question. But the question has been at the elementary level, how much am I as a parent going to need to do? And I am going to recommend that you help as much as you possibly can, especially for our younger learners who are learning how to read and still learning, some of those fine motor skills and learning some of those critical skills that they learn at the elementary level. The program that we're recommending for tomorrow night, I am very confident in will allow your students to get the education that they deserve and that they need, no matter what grade they're in. As parents, you're going to need to support them as well, though. Some of the resources that we will be putting out to parents as early as next week will be like a family plan. What will your schedule be? What will you as a family and as parents and guardians, how will you be the learning coach? How will you support your students as they learn? So we were going to give you some guides, and there will just be guided recommendations to help you kind of think through what will learning online look like when my child is home every day. What will that look like and how will that work for our family? So those supports are coming your way. We'll be putting those out on our Bella website as early as next week as a way to support you. And then there have been a lot of questions about synchronous learning versus asynchronous learning. And just to clarify what those are, synchronous learning is when something like this, when it's happening in live time, is when the teacher is there in live time and the student is in live time and they're having conversations. That is synchronous learning. Asynchronous learning is when there are assignments that are posted and a student can log in whenever they want to log in and complete those assignments. So at the elementary level, when we were choosing the platform that we wanted to use, something that was very important to us was to find a program that also offered some synchronous learning options for our students. Because again, we recognize that at the elementary level, our students have some greater needs with their learning and their just where they are with maturity and what they may need. And so the program that we're recommending does have some synchronous learning options, meaning that students may have a time with their teacher at 9 o'clock in the morning that they can sign on and they'll have some live time teaching. So the elementary program will not be totally asynchronous. We are looking for a way to provide students some live contact with their teachers. So that's something that that we are excited about for our elementary program. I mentioned this earlier, but there were some questions about the teachers in Bella, and are they Bellefonte teachers? Can they be Bellefonte teachers? Down the line, they may be Bellefonte teachers. However, right now, we are trying the best that we can to provide you with an opportunity for learning. And with that, we are working with other platforms who are the experts in doing this, who have been doing this, who have a great success record. And we want to provide the best to our students if you go with Bella. So they will not be Bellefonte students or Bellefonte teachers, but they are Pennsylvania certified teachers who know what the standards are for each grade level and will do their best to make sure that your students are getting the education that they need for their particular grade level. There have been some questions about what if my student transitions back? What will that look like? Will they have the same exact class? They will have the same content that they have been working on throughout the year. However, if your student transitions back halfway through the year, they may not be in the exact same place in their math class. They may not be on the exact same topic in their reading class or their social studies class. However, per grade level across the state of Pennsylvania, we have standards that we must meet for our students every grade level. So they will be learning within the standards. It may not be the exact same place. However, our teachers here in Bellefonte will work with your students to help them transition back if you choose that's the option that you would like to do. And again, I just want to stress that your students are still Bellefonte students. They are still our kiddos. If they want to participate in extracurricular activities, if there are clubs after school, they are still welcome to do that because they are our students. Every year, I can proudly say that we have at least 5 or 6 students walk across the stage at graduation who spent the majority of their high school career in Bella. Because again, for some students, online learning is the absolute best way for them to learn. And for some students, it's not. And that is something that until you try, you don't know. And so there I saw a ton of questions surrounded around by what if we change our minds? if we decide to start the school 5 days a week, or if we choose the hybrid model and things change and we are not comfortable sending our students 5 days a week or in the hybrid model, can we still choose Bella? And to that, I will say yes. If you start 5 days a week or with the hybrid model and you are not comfortable with that and you feel that Bella is the way to go, yes, you can sign up later for Bella. What I've also told parents that it is more difficult if you do the reverse. If you choose to start in Bella and a month in, you realize this is not working for your child, we certainly want all students to be successful. However, I do ask you to remember that when you decide you're doing Bella, we have taken your child off of the list who's going to be in the classroom. So instead of maybe 20 students in the classroom, now we're down to 18. And that changes the game for us in our planning right now. It changes how we are setting up classrooms. It changes how we are providing for supplies. So we are asking parents to do your best to make a decision and try to stay with that decision as much as possible, because we want to support you and the students in every way we possibly can. And the more information we have prior to the start of the school year with your choices, the better prepared we can be. So again, I must have seen maybe 50 questions that went to that exact question. Can we change our mind? Again, I will say we want to support you in every way we possibly can. Just recognize from our side that the more information we have early, the better prepared we can be for the scenarios. So if you start with 5-day instruction or the hybrid instruction and you're not comfortable, we can still enroll your child in Bella. If you start in Bella and decide to come back, it gets a little bit more difficult for us to adjust from there. So we are hoping that for the most part, people make a decision and stick to it for a semester. Hopefully in January, our world is in a much different place. Those of you who know me know that I am the eternal optimist, and I want to believe that we will resume school as we once all knew and loved it to be. However, we have no way to predict that right now. So in thinking about what your plans are going to be, understanding that Bella is something where your students are going to have to take the lead much more themselves. You as parents, you're going to have to support them more than maybe you would if they were in 5-day instruction or even 2-day instruction. Because we also know that to help a student be successful in any kind of learning, parent and guardian support is paramount. So the more you can support your child, the better it will be. We will continue to provide you with guidelines and recommendations and support, because we recognize for many of you, this is brand new. You've never done this before. And so we will continue to try to help you as best as we can through that process. But hang in there with us, because we are learning every day as well. And just when we have a plan and just when we think things are ready to go, things change. And we're trying our best to roll with those changes. And as Mrs. Krish said earlier, we have received so much support from our community and our parents, and that makes a huge difference. We want the best for your kids. We love our students. We want to provide the absolute best learning environment that we can, which is why we have 3 different options for parents and students so that we can try to meet everyone's needs. Mrs. Burniford or Mrs. Krish, is there anything else that you think for Bella that I didn't address or that you saw in questions that we need to review?
No, but I want to point out that we're sitting in one of the Bella locations for this live broadcast. This is a room in our 310 building across the Bellefonte Elementary School that was just recently remodeled, and the tables and chairs just came. And so if you can see in the background, that's where we're sitting right now.
And so with the Bella Center, one thing we've been able to offer in the past is some office hours each day. Because again, we recognize that some students do better when they have that teacher right in front of them. And so in the past, as I said, Miss Rebecca Leitzel, who is phenomenal at her job and one of the hardest working ladies I have ever had the pleasure of working with, she has always been able to offer office hours. With the increased enrollment that we're seeing, we are looking to add additional staff to support the program, to support Miss Leitzel, and to still be able to offer your students those office hours. So if they need to come in and see somebody and work for maybe an hour, that's something that we intend to offer. And that is the space that they're sitting in would be a space that students could potentially come in and work for an hour, a couple hours a week if they need that additional personal support.
So I think that's it. Thank you, Mrs.
Okay.
Garland.
Well, you are welcome. And I also know that there were some middle school questions on there. And all I want to say to my middle school parents is in the next few days, I will send out additional information about the middle school. I know there's a lot of questions about switching classes and red team, white team, and lunch and how we're handling those things. We have an incredible task force at the middle school. We just met for several hours today, and we are breaking apart all of those questions because, again, our goal is to keep our students and our staff as safe as they possibly can while still coming to the middle school. Those middle school parents who may be watching this later, you may remember a time back in April, I sent out an email saying, I know this is frustrating and many people may say we're not doing enough. And to that, I have to say, we're not doing enough because we don't have our students in front of us. Education is so much more than just academics. There is so much that happens in any given day, from students crying because they're not getting along with their friends or they don't know how to handle this situation or that situation. The social and emotional learning that takes place at school is just as important as the academic side, because we are helping children figure out the kind of people they want to be and what they need to do moving forward. And we love our students. We want them to be with us. And as I said earlier, we respect everyone's opinions on what's right and best for your child. And that's what you've got to decide and be comfortable with in the end. What is right? Is Bella right for you? Great. If it's not, then let's pick a different option and let us help you through that. But in the end, please know that every administrator, every teacher, every support staff member has your child's best interest at heart. We want them to be successful. We want them to feel cared about. We want you to feel supported. And even though we may not have all the answers right now, we will continue working towards all of those answers as the school year rolls closer.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Garman.
Thank you, everyone. And if anybody has any additional questions about Bella or even the middle school, feel free to email me. My email address is sgarman, SGARMAN @BASD.net. And I would be happy to be back in touch with you regarding any additional questions, comments, or concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
So moving on to our hybrid model. This is our newest model that we put some information out in a week or so ago. So hybrid learning, where students will be in two groups. And building principals will assign students, if you choose the hybrid model, building principals will assign students to a group in an effort to reduce class size, balance the class loads, but also take into consideration family needs. And so we'll have a group A and a group B, and this is K through 12. And we chose these, so group A will be attending in person on Monday and Thursday, and then remote learning the other days through Google Classroom, and group B will attend on Tuesdays and Fridays, and virtual learning the other days. There's been some questions about why didn't you choose Monday, Tuesday, off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, those kind of things. Couple reasons. We're trying to accommodate K through 12 students. At the high school, Mr. Fettis is going to talk about the high school in a few minutes here, are trying to do some specialized scheduling that would be better served with an A and a B day, and so that it helps that situation. When we look at elementary and even some middle school students, the Monday, Thursday, Tuesday, Friday, we felt was needed to have students in school spread out, not like, so if they were on Monday, Tuesday, and then they had to go another week without being in school and we didn't see them. So we wanted to be able to see them more often. And so that was one reason for that too. There's been some misconceptions too about, that Monday, Tuesday, deep cleaning Wednesday, and then come Thursday, Friday. And I want you to know that we're going to be posting after this meeting our cleaning schedule, for lack of a better word, and procedures. And we're deep cleaning every day, not just on Wednesday or not just on Friday or those kinds of things. We will have teachers out of the building by 5 o'clock so that we can have our custodians have the buildings empty so that they can be doing that deep cleaning daily. And again, I will post that on the website, but the gist of it is that we will do our regular cleaning with some additional, high touch areas and those kind of things, which are the regular cleaning. We will then have a spray that we call the magic spray, and it's the chemical is in the thing that will be posted. I don't have it in front of me, but they will then spray hard surfaces with what we call the magic spray. It needs to sit for 1 minute, and it kills the COVID germs in 1 minute. And it turns to water after a period of time. So it doesn't require any special PPE or protective equipment to use it. So in addition to the custodians doing that at the school, teachers will also have access to the spray and can use it when students aren't in the room. So if they want to sanitize their desks during the school day, when like students are recess or those kind of things, or at a bathroom break, it only takes 1 minute to kill germs, and it again turns to water, and so it doesn't harm anyone. And then in addition to that, we have the ionization machines, and I call them the Ghostbuster machines because they wear them in a backpack and they spray around the room. And that is another disinfectant, sanitizing product that will also kill the germs, and that's also sprayed after the magic spray is put in the room, and that will be the final cleansing product that we use daily. So, I just want to make sure there's not a misconception about that we're never deep cleaning, or we're only deep cleaning once a week. We're deep cleaning every single day in the schools.
Just hand sanitizer.
Yeah, so in addition to that, there's hand sanitizer going to be in each classroom for students to use. There will also be stations around the building. In some buildings, there's 6 in classrooms. If not, then the teacher will be scheduled for hand washing breaks at recommended times throughout the day. So that's part of the cleaning. So I just wanted to touch on the cleaning before I got further to the hybrid option. So the hybrid option, there's other questions about, will these students who are only there 2 days a week, will they be with their classmates? And yes, they will. So some parents wanted to know if we were having those students go to a separate classroom with a separate teacher. We don't have the manpower to put students into a separate classroom or space to do that. We're already jockeying for space because we've had to move some larger classes to larger spaces. For instance, at Mary Walker, I have a 4th grade classroom going to the art music room because it's a large class and that room offers more space. And so in order to do that, we don't have the space to have extra teachers and extra classrooms. So how you're mitigating your child's risk by using the hybrid model would be that your child will be in school less days, and so less exposure on the buses, and those kind of things. And so, but they will be in class with their classmates on the 2 days that they're in school, their regular assigned classmates. The 3 days that they're not in school, so they will have a live class on the 2 days. On the days they're not, they will be doing the Google Classroom lessons. And those Google Classroom lessons for that day will mirror what is happening in the classroom that day. And so students will keep on pace. They will not have to catch up when they come back to school on the second day or the next week or whatever. They will be on pace with the other students doing their work. Teachers will, again, independently determine if they're going to live stream, if they're going to upload other teaching methods and materials. We've looked at multiple resources depending on the grade and the subject matter, and we've added some resources to some grades so that the teachers have resources that are better suited for online learning. And they're, again, training now to be able to utilize that and also to be better prepared for that online piece. So teachers will be using, like I said, Google Classroom. We are not prepared, and we're not offering at this time for students to do 5 days of Google Classroom. In this model, we want to see kids at least 2 days per week. so that we can have that live touch, that live, again, social emotional learning, and just that connection with their teacher and connection to, does there need to be any interventions and those kind of things going on. And so, again, 2 days per week that you're in school, 3 days per week out of school. Am I missing anything there with that? So attendance, let me talk about attendance quickly with, especially the hybrid learning. And for all of it, we are required to take attendance. Bella has attendance built into its software. The platforms that we use has attendance built in, and they can track students' work in real time. In, of course, full-time school, it's, we will do traditional attendance. For hybrid learning, or if your student is quarantined or sick and is working remotely through Google Classroom, we will be taking attendance either whether a student is logged in live, that could be one way to take attendance, or through the products that they turn in for their class. So if they're supposed to be doing writing at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they have to turn in a writing assignment, that writing assignment will count as they were attending class, and that completion of that assignment. And it could be big or small, and this is, each teacher will have to decide what is appropriate activity or product that the students will have to turn in that will count for attendance. We are required by the state to have a schedule for hybrid learning and for remote learning for the sort of 8 to 3 school day. And so we will be posting in Google Classroom what the schedule is for each grade and each level. And so students, Mr. Fedison and Mrs. Garman can answer this later. I can answer for elementary. We will have a schedule that says like reading is from 8 to 8:30 and 9 to 9:30 is writing, and math is this time. Lunch and recess will also be built into the home schedule. I believe in middle school and high school, students will be expected to follow their regular schedule and do their coursework at the time they're supposed to be in class. Now, we do understand also that parents work, and this isn't perfect, and that we can be a little flexible on that, because there might be parents who, after they get home from work, that they will be working with their students in the evening. So we can be flexible about that, but our teachers will be on duty and providing that work during the regular school hours. Grades will also be done as if they were in live school. So if your child is attending school on Monday, Thursday, and they're remote learning Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, they will be graded on Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday when they're home, just as if they were in class. And so they're expected to do the work, they're expected to turn it in, and they're expected to do quality work. And we will keep the curriculum on pace and following our curriculum and the state standards. And we will grade just like they were in live school. So in the spring, we understand there was confusion and there was, we were doing choice boards and things like that. This is not what we're doing in the fall. All assignments will be graded or graded according to the teachers, what they decided or determined. And if an assignment is missing, it becomes a 0, and that's factored into their grade. Let's see. I'm gonna finish the PowerPoint, and then I'm gonna have Mr. Perez chime in about the high school. So if we would go to what's called a yellow phase, and this is something that we can do ourselves, or the governor or Pennsylvania Department of Education also can declare for us. But we can also decide based on local numbers of cases if we want to go to our yellow phase. But again, it can also be determined for us. So if we go to a yellow phase, that means the hybrid learning model. And before we talked about kids going every other day, 1, 3, 5, 2, 4, 6, and we discussed this later and decided that might be too confusing for families, would be hard for work schedules, and we felt that it was better that we do what we're doing now for our hybrid model, which where kids, half the group will come on Monday and Thursday, and half the group will come on Tuesday and Friday, and then the other 3 days of the week we will be doing Google Classroom. So the hybrid, that hybrid phase will continue if we are put into a yellow phase. We will determine probably by alphabet who's in which which group A or group B. But we will work with families to have family members in the same cycle so that we can help parents out with that as well. So we understand that can be more productive to have them in the same thing. You can though, and we've had this question, and they're like, if I have 3 children, can I have a child in Bella, a child in hybrid, and a child in regular school, and them all be doing something different? Absolutely. You decide what works for your kids and which model works best. We actually have families that are already planning to do that. And then if we go to a red phase, which would probably be a governor's order or PDE order to shut down, all instruction will be completed virtually. Now, if you're a Bella student, you just continue with Bella in all of these phases. Continue with Bella. If you're in the in-person or hybrid model, when we go to red, you will simply switch to an all Google Classroom model. It will be facilitated by the child's teacher. And we would put out more information on how that might be ramped up if that would happen. So we're planning for all of these phases, but that's sort of the skinny on that. Before we go to Mr. Tyson, I'll just talk a little bit about transportation, and then he can talk a little bit about what that means for some special programs in high school at CPI. Our buses will be equipped with hand sanitizing stations. Students will be asked to use hand sanitizer entering and exiting. And I will say that students will, one of our safety rules or guides will be, anytime a student enters a classroom or a learning space in any building, they're expected to use hand sanitizer. If your child can't use hand sanitizer for some reason, it'll be soap and water. And we'll make accommodations to do that. So getting on buses, they'll be supplied with hand sanitizer. They must wear a face covering unless they have the medical excuse from a doctor. And buses will be filled from back to front to try to minimize contact as long as possible on the buses. Students will have assigned seats with 2 students per seat or less, and windows will be open for ventilation when the weather permits. We are appreciative of those parents who, when we sent out the survey earlier, who said they would be able to transport their children to school. We are working on transportation plans, so we do appreciate and hope that some parents will be able to transport their students to try to lower the numbers on the buses. We may have some different drop-off and pick-up areas at each building, depending on the building and what they're able to manage, so that we can accommodate longer lines or smoother transitions from morning or after school. So your specific building principal can talk to you a little bit more about what that transportation plan might be. And then this last slide just talks about some of the things that to make education successful and maintain health and safety. These are some of the things that we've had to think about and promote. You know, we're talking about disinfecting, sanitizing all the time, physical distancing all the time. Educational equity, we know that there's some concerns that we would go remote and how we would make sure that everyone has access. We're working on plans for that. Of course, the face coverings is always a hot topic. Self-reporting and health screenings. We're really relying on parents to help us out with that, to help us do that, as well as our nursing staff. And student and teacher interactions, we feel it's really important that some of our students who, where parents feel it's safe, that we have that social interaction for our students. So Mr. Fedison, that was sort of the overview of the 3 different choices. Can you talk a little bit more about what that might look like and be like at the high school and what might be some nuances of the high school?
Yes, absolutely. Good evening. Again, my name is Mike Fedison. I'm the high school principal. Mrs. Krish, if you could you display the last slide of your green phase where it has the purple screen with the dots for groups A and B?
Yeah.
I think that would help me illustrate the high school schedule. So in regards to the high school questions, the questions we received fit into 3 basic themes. The first being the high school schedule and what does that look like? The second theme being CPI. What does CPI look like in the different phases? Will students be able to attend CPI? And then the third theme of questions relates to athletics and extracurriculars. So we'll begin with the high school schedule. So for students that are current students who are familiar with the high school schedule, in years past, we ran what is called a modified block schedule. And if you're not familiar with the schedule, what that basically means is that during our 6-day cycle, 4 of the 6 days were more of a traditional type schedule. And what I mean by that is that students would see all 8 of their classes, and each of those classes is approximately 45 minutes. Then on days 5 and 6 of the 6-day cycle, we ran what was called a block schedule. And what that basically means is that on each of those 2 days, students would attend 4 of their 8 classes, but those classes were twice as long, so approximately 90 minutes in length. So when we consider our schedule for this year, one of the challenges of the high school schedule is that students intermix with a lot of different classes. There's many different electives and offerings, which is fantastic and great that students have those opportunities. It does present a larger challenge for trying to contact trace and keep students in smaller groups. And so what we are going to do this year is we are going to have all of our days be in the block format. And what that looks like is basically alternating back and forth between what our current students would know as day 5 and day 6, but we would call block A and block B. So what that basically means is that on Monday of the start of the week, we would run block A, which means that class periods 1, 2, 5, and 6 would meet. Each of those classes would be approximately 90 minutes in length with a half an hour lunch. And then on Tuesday, we would go to block B. So the other half of the classes that the student did not meet with on Monday would meet on Tuesday. Periods 3, 4, 7, and 8. Again, 90 minutes in length with a half an hour lunch. And so our plan is to then alternate days back and forth between block A and block B. So to illustrate what that would look like for students that attend school every day, if they choose to attend school, 5 days a week, they're seeing, half their classes every other day. And that would be, somewhat traditional, somewhat routine with what they've done in the past. For our students that choose the hybrid model, if a student would attend, looking at this graphic, on Monday and Thursday, that student would be here on Monday in person, would be a block A. So they would see half of those classes. Tuesday, as we continue on, would be a B. Wednesday would be an A. Thursday would be a B. So we set it up this way that any student in the hybrid model would see both their block A and block B classes during the course of the week. Keeping in mind, though, that there may be occasions when there's a holiday that students may miss a block A or a block B. So just to keep that in mind, if there is a holiday on a Monday and I am a group A student that I come on Mondays and Thursdays, I may not meet in person with whatever A or B group that is that day. Again, kind of illustrating the same thing. If we start A, B, throughout the week, and I'm a Tuesday, Friday group, a group B, I would have my block B first on Tuesday and then my block A on Friday. And it would alternate from week to week. So if I'm a student in group A this week, my A is on Monday and my B is on Thursday. Next week, they would be reversed. My B would be on Monday and my A would be on Thursday. So there is some variation from week to week, but it is set up so that students would see both of those groups within one calendar week. There were some questions in regards to AP courses and things of that nature. Are students picking and choosing which block days they would be coming? So the answer in essence would be no if they're in the hybrid model, because we've aligned it so that they could see all those classes throughout the course of the week. Otherwise, some other things that parents have asked about, they've asked about co-op work experience for some of our seniors, as well as dual enrollment and college and high school. Those things are all continuing to go on. As Mrs. Garman shared, she's going to put out some information in regards to specifics about the middle school. We're going to do that with the high school as well. We certainly appreciate your patience. We do have a few extra moving parts with some of those things I mentioned to just align as we send that out. But that's basically the high school schedule in a nutshell. The second theme that was mentioned was CPI. concern about will CPI still be in session and what will that look like? So yes, CPI is still in session. CPI has put together their own health and safety plan. So if you're interested in reading any of the specifics with that, it is posted on their webpage. Their webpage is cpi.edu. They are implementing many of the same things that we plan to implement. They will have staggered dismissals for students getting off the buses and coming into CPI, as well as leaving their program areas to get back on the buses to return to their home schools. They will have students wearing masks in their program areas. They will try to utilize outdoor space to increase ventilation as much as possible in addition. So there's many other things that you could read through within that plan. But yes, CPI is still going to occur. So let me explain briefly what that looks like in each of the three options. For students that choose to attend each day, their school day would look very similar to what it would have looked like in previous years. A student would come to school. If they're an AM CPI, they would be here for some attendance and announcements. They would take the school transportation to CPI for their morning session. They would return midday to have their other courses and lunch before returning home. The same would be true if a student was in PM CPI attending 5 days, just in reverse. They would be here for the morning classes and their lunch, and then ride school transportation to CPI in the afternoon and return. For the Bella students who are in Bella are not as affected by the day-to-day high school schedule, but students do still need to find a way to get to CPI. And so what we are offering is that if students are older, particularly students are usually in PM CPI, we are allowing students to drive to CPI. They are permitted to take a household member. So for example, if you have siblings that both attend CPI, they could go in a student-driven vehicle. We are asking though that students do not pick up friends from the high school to take them in their car. And we would have assigned permission so that we know that the high school and CPI and families are all on the same page with which students are driving and expected to be there. If a student is younger and does not drive and they're in the Bella program, they can still attend CPI. Families would be responsible for either dropping their child off at CPI or getting the child to the high school to get the bus. That looks a little bit different depending upon AM or PM. So I will go through both scenarios. If my child is an AM CPI, that student could ride the bus from home to school like they would on any day. They could then ride the school transportation to CPI for their AM session and ride that bus back to the high school. It would then be upon each family for that child to get home from CPI, basically when they return to the high school midday. The reverse is true for PM CPI. They would be Bella students in the morning, but have to find a way to get to the high school midday to catch the bus to CPI or be dropped off at CPI. But again, if they were here, they could then, in essence, ride the bus home at 3:15, if that makes sense, hopefully. So that is still an option for Bella students. For students in the hybrid model, it looks very much the same. In the hybrid model, if they are attending all day, it looks very similar to a normal school day. Ride the bus to school, take school transportation to and back from CPI, continue their day, ride their normal transportation home. If it is a remote learning day, again, they could ride school transportation to school if they're in the AM session, take the school bus to CPI and back to the high school, but then would need to get home midday. And again, the reverse in the afternoon. There are a couple other questions regarding CPI, and that is basically how are we handling some of their safety protocols, which we touched on. And the other is that when students attend CPI, will they be around students from other districts? And the answer is yes. The other sending schools, Baldwin and Penns Valley, are going to continue to send their students as well. So know that they will still be interacting with those other students as they would have been in a traditional school year. And the final set of questions relate to athletics and extracurriculars. The first question being that will athletics, and I include extracurriculars in this, if they are taking place, will your participation in athletics or extracurriculars be affected by your choice of educational option? And the answer is no. So if you attend full day, 5 days a week, if you choose the hybrid option, if you choose Bella, students are still fully able to participate in athletics and extracurriculars. Again, there are some of the same pieces regarding transportation that exist with CPI. For example, if a student is in Bella and they have to be at the high school at 3:30 for an athletic practice, the family needs to find a way for the student to get transportation to be here. If there would be an athletic event and there's an early dismissal at 1 o'clock to travel, again, it would be incumbent upon that student and the family to get to the high school to take that school provided transportation as part of the team to the event. If a student chooses to only go in the hybrid model, can they still participate in practice? Again, yes, practice and games or extracurriculars are the same. Mrs. Krish did touch on attendance with the virtual piece. At the high school level, if a student is learning remotely, so if they're in the hybrid option, we do expect them to follow their normal school schedule. So if they have math during the first block of the day from 8 o'clock until 9:30, and they're learning remotely that day, they should be logged on doing whatever activity that is for the day, whether that's a live presentation or an asynchronous event. Why this is important for us with attendance is that particularly with athletics, PIAA states that students do have to be in attendance all day in order to be eligible. And so we need to make sure we follow that guideline, because if we do not, it is not a good feeling to tell a group of student athletes that they need to forfeit an event that they may have won because we used an ineligible player. So that is something to consider as well. Also along those lines, many high school students have jobs and work outside of the school day. Those are things that would need to be planned around the regular school hours as they would be normally. Again, the other thing of consideration with athletics and extracurriculars, regardless of the hybrid or Bella option, students still need to meet academic and behavioral eligibility. So that means in the Bella case, logging certain amounts of hours each week. In the hybrid model, again, it means completing the activity to account for your attendance and making sure that you have passing grades meeting our academic guidelines. And those are the major themes that were questions with the high school. Mrs. Krish, Mrs. Bernaford, again, was there anything that I may have missed?
At the moment. You want to talk about lunch? I'm going to talk about lunch at the elementary. You want to talk about lunch at all?
Sure. So at the high school on block day lunches, we assigned lunches based on the teacher during that portion of the day. We try to be strategic that, for example, phys ed classes always eat the last mod so that they are not eating and then going to physical activity, that they have their full hour and a half of class before they go to lunch. We also try to do the same with some of the different shops, things like art, wood shop and so forth, because of having to stop, put equipment away, clean up. We try to either have those students eat the first lunch or the last lunch so they have uninterrupted class time. But with the high school, typically you're going to have a third of the school eating at any one time. So in order to try to, again, create more distance and a safer environment for the students, we are going to be splitting the lunch period into 2 separate locations. So students would either eat lunch in the cafeteria, or we're also going to use the auxiliary gym as a secondary cafeteria space. And so that will be set up again to ensure 6 feet of social distancing when students have their lunch. We will have the same lunch options available in either space. Students will be able to select various lunch options, although they may be somewhat more limited than traditionally. Again, to help with ordering and paying for lunch, We believe there is an app connected with our software that students can have on their smartphones to provide contactless payment. As far as instead of punching in their number on a pin pad that everyone is touching, they can just have their phone almost like a QR code scanned, which will help speed up the process. Again, with lunches, like many other large space environments, students will need to have, assigned seating, and we'll have to keep those consistent again to keep contact tracing. If we do have someone that is test positive for COVID-19, we need to be able to provide that information to help keep everyone safe thereafter. And so then that will rotate again each period. We have 3 still block period lunches, A mod, B mod, and C mod. And again, those are trying to split those evenly to keep numbers as small as possible in each of those spaces.
Thank you, Mr. Pedersen. We're going to move on to some things. I'm being cognizant of the time, and so I know this is a lot of information, and we've already been going over an hour. We're going to try to wrap up around 8 o'clock. If we don't get to all the questions that were submitted, we will either have another session like this, or we will create a FAQ document that answers those questions, and we will post them on the website. So again, I'm going to try to hustle through some of these things, but we might not get to all of them. I just want to point out that we have not had our health and safety plan approved by the school board yet. That's required before school starts. We've been working on this diligently. We had it pretty close in a draft to at the last board meeting. If you logged in, and I did a briefing with the board last time, and then 2 days after that, the July 16th guidelines came out from the state, and some things had to change. And so there's an updated draft on the school board agenda of our health and safety plan. It will be posted on our website after it's board approved, so that you can see some of those details. And most of those details we're talking about right now, but if you like to read those kind of things, it's 35 pages long. You can see that as soon as it's board approved. So I'll just piggyback on the lunch for middle school. I believe they only have one location for lunch. I don't know if they have a secondary location, but I'm sure that Mrs. Garvin will put that in her FAQs, and she puts that out later this week. But she is working on a plan to get physical distancing and getting kids through. At the elementary level, if we cannot get 6 feet in the cafeteria, in some instances we can, we will be keeping them with their cohort, which is their homeroom, and they will be eating in the classrooms to help get greater distance, or even just keep them with their cohorts versus in a cafeteria with other groups. We will have meals delivered. As you can imagine, kindergartners carrying their trays down the hall might be not good. And so we will have them delivered. They will be using a barcode system, so kids do not have to tap in their IDs for payment. The kids will just need to know their first and last name, so give that to the cafeteria cashier, and they will then barcode to accept payment. And we mentioned assigned seats. For everything that we're doing, I mean everything, there will be an assigned seat. And that's a recommendation guideline from every research thing that's out there, that if we should get a case, we have to do contact tracing. And so everything will be an assigned seat. It also limits the number of students using desk materials and those kinds of things. For recess at the elementary level, most of us, excuse me, are doing zones in our playgrounds. Students will be playing and be able to have recess with their homerooms so we're not mixing cohorts. And so students will, in my particular case, I'm having 4 zones. And so students, like, one is a blacktop area, one is the equipment area, one is a field. And each day they will rotate through a zone for recess so that they all get a chance. We're working on things like classroom recess equipment, so that each classroom has their own equipment. The teachers will have access to the sanitizing spray if they feel a need. One of the things, that students share a ball at recess, we try to minimize the number of students who share the ball. But again, we will have hand sanitizer, and they will wash their hands as soon as they come in from recess, so that if there was sharing of equipment or there was contact, that we can sanitize and wash their hands. So that's the recess plan. Another thing that came up on some of the questions is educational trips and travel out of state. We had some meetings with some legal representatives and some researchers and some other folks, and we talked about ed trips. And the current guidelines from the state, from the governor's office, are that if you travel to one of the hotspot states, that you are recommended to quarantine for 14 days. And we are asking folks to please honor that. And if you have been relatively safe on your trip and you feel like there's not been a risk of contracting COVID, you could contact your physician. And if your physician is going to give you a medical release, then the quarantine could be waived by the physician. We don't feel that we're qualified to do that waiving of that. And so we're asking that people are working with us on that quarantine. And if a student is quarantined, they will be, that's, with the medical excuse is a medical excuse, so will be excused, and they will be allowed to use the Google Classroom platform to carry on with their schoolwork, or Bella if they're in Bella. All right, let me switch to some of the questions that you submitted. I answered some of the questions that you submitted that way. So I'm going to scan through. I have some questions highlighted and see if there are things that I have not answered before. So be patient with me as I try to do this. There was a question about, whether, I think I answered this, whether the hybrid model, whether it be synchronous or asynchronous, which means is it live or is it not live? It really depends on the teacher. In some cases, the teacher might want to live stream. We will not be videotaping any live stream classes. So a teacher can videotape a lesson and post it in Google Classroom for students to watch, but it will not be a live streamed video in that case. Students are going to be wearing masks all day as per the guidelines and orders, and at each level there will be mask breaks, and those will be scheduled in throughout the day. They do not wear them, of course, to eat, and if they're outside at recess, they can take them off if they're maintaining the 6 feet distance while they're playing. And so, like I said, the elementary level, we're getting lanyards so that when they go out to play, we can have them tuck them in their shirt, or at lunch they can have the lanyards behind their back so that they are not, putting their mask down, losing their masks, touching other kids' masks, those kinds of things. But we are going to, like I said, have mask breaks. The other thing that people have asked is if we have outdoor classroom space. We are allowing our teachers. We don't have, enough outdoor classrooms for every teacher. However, the teachers know of spaces around the buildings outside that they're permitted to use. And if they choose to take a class outside, then they're welcome to do that as long as weather's permitting. PE classes will be outside, weather permitting as well, to help with that. Let's see. If a positive case is found, this has been a big question as well. We have some guidelines from the state on what we should do if there's a case, and we have a plan for if someone has symptoms, that they will be, that the nurse will follow. We don't have, we will be immediately calling the Department of Health, is how this works. They have not given us numbers or guidelines on if a case happens, does the whole classroom shut down, does the whole building shut down, does everyone go into quarantine? There may be cases where the classroom does not shut down, the whole school does not shut down. And so we will, again, we're expected to call the Department of Health immediately should a case or symptoms arise, or someone has told us that they've been exposed, and then we will follow that. If there is, we are not permitted to give out a name of a student or family who may have revealed this information, or a staff member. That's very clear in the law. But Department of Health will contact families who need to be notified, and they've assured us of that. So that's really the guidelines we have. Do you have anything further than that?
So just today, the Department of Health issued guidance that they have 600 people who are going to be dedicated to contact tracing and dedicated to handling any cases that may occur in schools. And they're expanding that to over 1,000 employees in the Department of Health. Some counties have their own county health department, and that county health department will take over that oversight and the contacting and all those things. Unfortunately, we don't have a Center County Department of Health, so we will be working straight with the Department of Health in Harrisburg. I know of some different situations. The Department of Health has been very involved. I know of a case locally where the Department of Health called the family every single day and contacted all the people that that family had been in contact with. So the follow through will all come from the Department of Health, and we will be directed from the Department of Health. Again, that confidentiality is critical. It's like HIPAA. Just as we wouldn't disclose, somebody's medical condition, we also cannot disclose who may or may not have tested positive. And the Department of Health and our nursing staff has received a great deal of training and information as well. We will follow through on all of those things.
So another question I'm seeing here is special education, academic or emotional support. And so we will be following any written IEPs, and we are also working on a plan for our school psychologists. If your child was in the queue to get tested for special education, we're working on a plan to get that started. And we have a new special ed director, but and also a special ed liaison who's also new to our district. So we have two special ed leaders who are working diligently right now to review IEPs and make sure that once we get started, then those IEPs will be followed. And so should you have questions about that, make sure you contact that department and they can kind of walk you through that process a little bit more. There's been some questions here, what do we do if a student refuses to wear a mask? We do not want to become the mask police. We will not be handling this in a educational kind of way, rather than probably a disciplinary kind of way, in that we will be working with your child to tolerate masks, to wear their mask, understand why we're wearing the mask or face coverings, and then contacting you if we're still having concerns about refusal or those kind of things. This is not something we want to have a tug of war about, so we're really begging parents to just support us on this. Even if you disagree with the mandate, we are asking this for your support, because we are required to follow the mandate and the guidelines unless you have a medical excuse. If you already have a 504 plan or an IEP and you get a medical excuse, that can be added to those documents. If you don't, then we would go through the nurse process, where the nurse, just like if you had a peanut allergy, where you would get that medical documentation to the nurse about that condition, then we will inform teachers that there's a medical condition. The teachers don't need to know the medical condition, but they need to know that your child will not be wearing a mask because of that medical condition. So again, that's that. Some people ask if they already signed up for Bella, how can they sign up for the hybrid model instead? I would suggest contacting Mrs. Garman or your building principal about the switch. Tomorrow, I will be sending out an email with a link, just like the Bella link. I'll send out both. I'll send out the Bella link and a link to register for the hybrid option, so that you can, if you are interested in one of those options, that you can choose that. The deadline will still be August 11th. However, we will beg, plead, beg and plead is really the sooner, like as Mrs. Garman said, the sooner we have your decision and the information, it helps us in planning. Teachers have started coming into the classroom to arrange desks. They've got their 6-foot marks and their 3-foot marks, and they're trying to arrange classrooms, get equipment in their classrooms, get furniture back in. And so that process of planning for supplies and materials, planning for busing, if you can help us out and make a decision sooner, we'd really appreciate it. But again, you have until August 11th. And if you have not chosen either the hybrid model or Bella by August 11th, your child will be assigned to the 5-day in-person model. All right, I'm looking here quickly again, looking at the clock. will support professionals be allowed to come help in the classroom. If your child had PCA, that's something again to discuss with the special ed director, but those services in the classroom are still viable in these models. One of the things we're trying to do is scheduling with our support staff, our aides and PCAs, is if we're able to have them just be in one classroom a day rather than multiple, because in the past they've been in multiple classrooms, we're going to try to do that so that they're not cross-contaminating classrooms. So we're still working on those. We talked about grading, school ventilation. And there was some concern about Bellefonte Elementary too, and maybe some better questions as well. There is, we have some plans for ventilation. In most of the buildings, those ventilation systems are adequate, and there are extra measures being taken. They're in our health and safety plan that's going before the board. I do know that Bellefonte Elementary is looking at some additional air conditioning units and better, and some fans that will help with air circulation. We are going to allow exterior doors will still be closed and locked on the building for safety. We usually have our interior classroom doors shut and locked as well for safety. Right now, we feel the COVID germs are more lethal than other safety issues, and so we will allow classroom doors to remain open for additional ventilation. However, again, exterior doors will be locked and shut at all times for that security. Let's see, cafeteria, we talked a little bit about. Students will be allowed to still bring their lunch. They're not allowed to share. This probably applies mostly to elementary, but we are not allowed to have snacks be brought to school. If students bring their lunch, well, and even our own lunches, which I forgot to mention, we're trying to make things that are prepackaged, individually served. Students may still be going through the line in some places, but things will be put on their trays versus students reaching in to get things, so that it's more non-touch kinds of things. That's one reason why we're probably going to deliver them at the elementary level. Let's see here. Doctor's notes. There's some questions about band and specials. We are working on schedules for our specials teachers to, I mean, if you're live in person, if we would go to remote learning, we will have a special schedule as well. We're still planning to really, the high school told you what their schedule is. We're still really planning to do a 6-day cycle. However, there was some concern like, oh, my kids go on Monday and Thursday. What if we have to have school on Monday? Well, then they don't come to school, and they could do the Google Classroom that day as well. And then when it's just Thursday, they come back to school. And or if we have a Friday, if you're a Friday attendee, then you just won't come on that Friday, and it'll just be you only come one day that week. And that's just because we're trying to keep it simple. It's not that we don't want your students in school, it's we're trying to keep it simple. Band, we have a plan for band, orchestra, and the choirs and things. There's some extra health and safety considerations that have to be taken into account for those classes. And so we have a rough draft of a plan for that. And so they will still happen. And just stay tuned for some of those details, but we do have a plan for that. All right. In the morning, we're diligently working on morning plans. Did I already talk about this?
No,
I can't
you
remember.
Yeah.
They're supposed to go straight to their classrooms, not congregate in the cafeteria, lobbies, those kind of things. We're working on bus schedules to see if we can get buses closer to start times. But again, that's a tricky thing to do. And asking parents, of course, to drop kids off closer to start time so that we don't have congregating. We're working on, like I said, we're working on a plan. That's been a bit tricky to figure out, but we are diligently working on that, and we'll have it figured out in the next few weeks. Excuse me, losing my voice. Drop off may be different in the morning and pick up at the end of the day, just to kind of help with that. All right. Anything that you read, Mrs. Burniford, that might have been
Yeah, I'd like to add a mask piece.
yes.
There are some children that will have a doctor's note and will not be able to wear a mask. We are required to offer an education to those students at all as well. My concern is between the children, kids asking others why they're not wearing masks and things. And I don't want to turn that into a situation where one student is pushing another to share why they're not wearing a mask. And that concerns me quite a bit. So if parents can talk to their children that there might be a rare case where a student can't wear a mask and that they have a good reason for that, if you could help us share that with your children, that would be really appreciated.
The other thing the question was on here, and this applies mostly to elementary, but I think middle school is doing some of this as well. I don't really have an answer about high school. We at the elementary, that first week of school, will be doing a lot of routines, Google Classroom work, some academics. But that first week is really like get them back at school, get us established as a community, get people to know each other, know their teachers, develop those relationships. Throughout. Our guidance counselors will still be doing lessons. Our guidance counselors are working on plans for the first couple of weeks, month of school, so that we can get those connections and that social emotional learning back on track. We understand that kids haven't been here since March, and we really, really want them to have a good experience. So we know there's going to be some stamina building and some routine building that needs to be re-taught. Our school-wide positive behavior support plan or programs will still be in force. And again, our guidance counselors are working on a plan now to kind of help teachers, work with teachers, and do some more fun, engaging, get back to school kinds of things that first week so that it's a little bit easier to get back in the groove things. All right, we're almost at 8 o'clock. We're looking, we answered a lot of these questions. So I'm trying to scan here and see if we have some that we just haven't covered yet. Not seeing. Did a pretty good job. To whom and by when do I need a doctor's excuse for my child who's unable to wear a mask in school? Before school starts. So be contacting your pediatricians right now to get that taken care of, and contact the building principal or the school nurse so that we can get that established and ready. Talked about the deadline. We are Chromebooks quickly. So middle school and high school, I believe, are going to be sending Chromebooks home daily so that students have them each day. At the elementary level, of course, hybrid students will be taking their Chromebooks home and their chargers. And so the idea is they charge their Chromebooks at home and bring them to school fully charged. And so when the days they're attending school, that they're fully charged. For those full-time in-person school students, we will be trying to do situational awareness. So if we feel like we might need the Chromebooks to be home, we'll send them home. It's kind of like a snow day. If you watch the weather and you think it's going to snow, we're going to send them home kind of thing. If for some reason we get caught and we don't anticipate a shutdown or a class being quarantined, we will then within a day or two have a pickup plan for Chromebooks. We learned a lot in the spring about how to make that happen and how to make that work, and we'll probably go with a pickup plan and a few deliveries if needed, that kind of thing. So that's what the deal will be with Chromebooks. And I think those are the main things that we saw on classes. Kindergarten, let me just simply say something about kindergarten orientation. We are having, we met with kindergarten teachers today and last week. We are having a kindergarten sort of camp orientation day in August. You will be getting letters if you're a kindergarten parent very, very soon about what that will look like. The parent night is probably going to be virtual for kindergarten parents, but the kids will be coming to school. It won't be probably as long as they came before, but we will be doing some similar activities with kindergarten kids so they are in the buildings before school starts to be more familiar with what's happening.
Back to school.
And back to school nights also, thank you, are also going to be virtual. And stay tuned for that. We're going to try to do them similar to what we've done back to school nights in the past, but only on online. And so more information will be coming out with that probably closer to the beginning of the school year. Anything else that we're forgetting? That was a lot. We know it. And so again, this is gonna be posted, you can watch it later and again, and buzz through the parts you don't want to hear about. We are also, like I said, I'm going to be posting a couple documents, the plan once it's approved, the cleaning procedures that we're doing, the nurses sick day plan, so you can know what symptoms you need to watch for to send your kid to school or not. So those should be come out the next day or so, as well as this being posted. We really thank you for tuning in. I also want to just do a shout out to some employers who have been working with their families and their employees and trying to make accommodations for parents who may want to do a different kind of schooling for their students. ResTech is one that I know of that is doing some things with their families or their workers so that they can be accommodating their work schedules or adjusting their work schedules to accommodate families. So we really appreciate all the employers that are doing that. And just we appreciate. We also appreciate your support and that we've been getting. It's been a really tough go, and we're working really hard behind the scenes. And if you have questions, please reach out to the principal of your building or Mrs. Burnford, and we will try our very best to get back to you. Thanks for tuning in. See you soon.
Thank you so much.